slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you
When I hear that soundtrack, it always just brings me back to that movie, that first opening scene. Now, when we talk about technology, we don't just have to think about the Terminator and all the destructive things that occur and robots taking over, but in some industries, robots really have taken over. Hi, in this lesson, we're going to look at technology and how technological strategies can improve our production processes and operations management. Now, there's a lot to cover in this lesson, as you can see here, lots of dot points, so we're going to be really careful and make sure we directly align this to the study design. So the study design asks us to look at strategies to improve both the efficiency and effectiveness of operations related to technological developments, including the use of automated production lines, robotics, computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and online services. So this is a fascinating area, and it is just constantly evolving. So this is a snapshot of where we are right now, and you'll see how we can link all of those to operations management. So let's take the first one, an automated production line. Well, when we break it down, when we break down those words, we've got a production line, which is automated. Now, if some of you have been lucky enough to go on a school tour, whether it may to Carlton United Breweries or Yakult, you'll have seen this in operation. Equally, you may well see in some of your classes videos of this effect. But what we're looking at here is producing our goods and services in a production line where it is automatically moving down the production line through the process. So often you'll see this in Australia Post in their sorting line, which this is a picture of it right in here, where you've got the delivery of the packages being moved through this production line all the way through here, being sorted, distributed, and then loaded up into containers to be taken out to the various sorting locations. That's an example there. Another example, like I said, is at Yakult, where you'll see the production line of the billed bottles moving along that production line, having the Yakult product inserted into them, having the capping put on the top, and then pushed through. If you're lucky enough to go to Carlton United Brewery, you'd have seen those beer bottles moving down the line, being filled up with their liquid, and then having them capped, packaged, wrapped, and then sent out the other line there. So this is machinery and equipment that are arranged in a sequence. So we're moving down the line. The sequence is there where the product is developed as it proceeds through each step. So while we're doing this, well, obviously the idea is with this technology, this machinery, we can replace the human effort. It's generally going to work really well in manufacturing industries where we can mass produce a standardized product. So we talked about Cadbury chocolate bars or the chocolate Easter bunnies. They're all going to be the same. If you're making a car, they're always going to be the same. If you're making the beer bottle, it's always going to be the same. Then we can then produce that same item time and time again, and that naturally suits an automated production line. We can have that machinery arranged in sequence to produce it really fast. We can have a higher productivity rate by doing this. Each station, therefore, performs a specific operation in a sequence with automatic transfer between each stage. So you'll see a lot of processes where it's just moving along automatically. That's what we're trying to do. We're in a sequence and it proceeds through each step. So what's the benefits from having an automated production line? Whether it's at Cadbury's, whether it's at Yakult, whether it's at Carlton United Breweries on a full production line. Why are we doing it? Well, hopefully that machinery and that standardized process means that by having it done regularly and repetitively, we're going to get high accuracy and precision. We might have a lot of robotics involved. We might have a lot of machinery. So we're going to hopefully lead to an increase in quality because that production line just keeps moving and keeps producing the same standardized item. Hopefully this accuracy will also lead to us having less waste. We can refine the production line until we get it just right and then just keep repeating it time and time again so we're not wasting items as we're producing them. In theory, because it is machinery running this and it is automatic, we could run this for 24 hours a day, non-stop. And some production facilities do that. So there's the opportunity to not be limited from a 9 to 5 working day, but run it for 24 hours. Hopefully, because the machinery is so well sequenced and organized, our productivity rates will increase. We can produce these really rapidly, that we can work out the way of doing it, and therefore the expense we've got is spread out over a number of items, and so the individual cost per unit will fall as a result of that productivity improvement. It also reduces those mundane, repetitive tasks where it might be just putting the bolt on the car time and time again. Well, the automatic process can do that for you, or putting the bottle cap on the bottle time and time again. Those used to be done by hand. Now the automated production line can do it for you. And therefore, by doing that, we can replace that labor and we'll save on the labor costs as a result of that. So lots of things that are strengths. However, obviously, there's some weaknesses as well. If you have an automated production line, you've got a lot of machinery aligned, you've got people making sure that the timing of each of those sequences is correct. All that investment in the machinery and the technology can be very expensive to set up. And obviously, if the system fails, everything's tied to it. So if for some reason that conveyor belt, that production line stops, everything stops. So the process can see major disruptions if just one part of it fails. Although you've replaced some of the mundane tasks, the jobs that do need to be done in terms of labor might be sorting out the machinery if it breaks down. But that's going to involve very technical training in how to make this production line work. So for those people that are still employed, they're going to have strong technical training and be able to do that. However, as we said over here, one of the main things that occurs when we have this production line is we replace the people with the machinery. And so often we'll get large-scale redundancy of employees happening when we install that production line. Okay, our next technological strategy is robotics. Now, this has just grown exponentially over my lifetime, and I'm sure it will over yours as well. The use of robots, whether it be in designing, construction, or operation, or making the products and the goods and services, is just being used more and more and more. Okay, so you see a lot of these robots. So you'll see huge applications of robotics, and increasingly so in industry, where they can be used to replace human effort. And these robots are just becoming more and more humanistic in terms of their ability to operate machinery and produce the products. So what is the goal of them? Well, the goal of robotics is to design machines that can help and assist humans, okay? Effectively take over the jobs that we used to do ourselves by using robots. So where can we use these robots? Well, our first area is in industrial manufacturing. If the weight and the safety for humans of making, let's say, for example, a car is at risk, where the car becomes very heavy, and if something happens to that person as they're working on that car, it's going to have huge implications. Or suddenly you can have robots, which are much stronger than humans, can operate and move that car into position and rotate it for when it's going to get painted and worked on paneling and welding, etc. So when things are very heavy and we're trying to protect the safety of the humans, we can use robots to take the humans' places. Equally, if the job is really boring and repetitive and can be done time and time again, we can use robots to do that job time and time again with precision and accuracy. So whether it be in stock control, whether it be in cleaning, whether it be in making the same item time and time again, so putting the bolts on a car, or welding precision on a car at the same point every single time, we can use robots to do that for us. Equally, if we want really high precision work where occasionally human error might come into place and it might not be quite perfect, well, the robot will do it time and time again in the same repetitive, accurate manner, that if we want to do high precision welding for a car manufacturer, we can use robots in that example. Okay. Now, as you'll see in the additional materials below here, there's also another great example of where we can use robots, but this one is in the Amazon robot pickers, where these robot pickers can do that work where the items that you pick when you go online and you pick them for yourselves, they can be picked from the store by robots. So you're not requiring individual humans to go out there. These robots, again, can work 24/7 to get the items that you need from them. So robotics are all programmable machines that are capable of performing a specific task, and they're used extensively in operations management. So again, what's the benefits of using robotics to replace human effort? Hopefully, because robots are programmed with an intense level of precision behind them, well, that high accuracy and precision will hopefully lead to an increase in quality. End products will be more accurate, And because, again, we've worked out that machinery and the robot is designed very carefully so it avoids any problems going involved, we'll have hopefully less wastage as well. The robot doesn't need to have a tea break, doesn't need to have a coffee break, doesn't need to have a toilet break. So we can run 24/7 with robotics. And because they just keep doing it over and over again, we can have our productivity rates really increase. For 24/7, the number of items we can produce per hour will go up, and therefore the cost per unit will fall over that period of time. So hopefully we may be able to sell the product for a cheaper eventual price for the consumer. As we mentioned before, in automated production lines, robotics also removes the need for humans to perform either repetitive, mundane, or equally dangerous jobs. We can get the robots to do it for us over and over again. And because we don't need those humans anymore, hopefully we can save on those labor costs as that human resources are replaced with these robotic machinery. The issues, what is the limitations of using robotics? Well, obviously, you can imagine the amount of money that goes into making a high welding arc arm that can pick up and drop a car and can rotate it and then spray paint it or whatever it may be. Okay, that's going to be incredibly expensive. So the robots themselves are still very expensive to set up, align, and get the training to make sure they operate correctly. Equally, if that robot for any reason fails, well, then the production line's going to stop with it. So we can see major disruptions occurring if it doesn't work. And just like automated production lines, if that robot fails, we're going to need people trained very cleverly and technically to be able to solve that issue, that problem-solving capacity. So the technical training is going to be really highly valued and needed by the humans that work on there. And as we said in the previous bit, when we replace the people with robots, we will unfortunately lead to large-scale redundancy of employees in our business. Our next technological strategy is computer-aided design. Now, again, if we break down the word, it's where we're using computers to improve our design processes. So we're using design software that enables businesses to generate and modify technical illustrations of a product. So here we have one of those classic pictures I'm sure you've seen on the internet, or if you've watched any videos or documentaries in this area where the computers design the house, design the flow through, and then with the camera setups, you can literally flow through and walk through the building to experience what it will be like before you even produce any of this. So the design component that uses the computers to set up a visualization of that product. So these programs often allow for the creation of 3D designs, and architects and engineers are big examples of where you can have a business application for computer-aided design. The idea being that these programs can draw and adjust the 3D designs based on the client. So you can have the client right there next to you walking through, well, do you like having this open space below? Maybe I don't. I'd like to have some additional storage space built in there. Or do I like the idea of this open window here? You can create it and adapt it and alter it to the client's request. And the client doesn't even have to be in the same room. It could be somewhere else in the world. And you can still email and review this application from anywhere in the world and allow you to experience it before you have one step in making the product or service. So its applications are not only architects and engineers, planes use this type of thing, cars, shipbuilding, all sorts of industries where you can actually create the design before you create the actual product. So obviously computer-aided design has loads of benefits to it. The idea being that we can almost like practice before we actually make the product. So we're going to have a huge degree of accuracy and precision. We could do wind tunnel simulations or fly-throughs. We can experience what it's like to actually be in one of these houses, or to test it in different situations and how it copes with different climatic conditions. We can do all of that without having to make one block of the product. So this simulations, the fly-throughs, it avoids us having to make these expensive prototypes, and we can experience it before we even make it. Customers also have the ability to be flexible and adapt the designs. So as we're going through this process, the client can keep on adding their own input, what they'd like to refine it, before we've committed to actually making it. And because we don't need to do these physical prototypes, we're going to reduce the wastage. Okay, we don't have to make anything until we're 100% sure of what we're actually going to set out to make from our plants. So we don't need to do any manufacture, and we can reduce waste. Computer-aided designs have done some amazing things with t-shirt cutouts, where beforehand you'd waste a whole bunch of material because as you cut through it, you discard the rest. Well, now you can get the 3D plan all organized so we can perfectly lay out and manipulate those shapes until we don't have any waste or very little waste. So all of this can do amazing things for the production process. And one of the great things, which is really exciting, and some of you may be involved yourself, it's great for creativity. You can do all sorts of things, playing on the computer, trying out different variations before you make the actual product. So 100% great for creativity. Limitations? Well, like many of these things in this category of technological strategies, initially they're expensive. To have the software, the computer system all set up, and to give an accurate representation of how that product will eventually be can be very expensive. And once again, if the system fails, you're relying on it, and that reliance can mean that the production process has to stop until you can solve the problem. The skills and training required need to be top end. And if you are an old paper-based designer, maybe you're going to get replaced. So the skills and investment in getting these employees up to the new technology is going to take some time and energy. And if the people don't come along with it, they could be made redundant by this process. Our next technological strategy is computer-aided manufacturing. Now, often you'll hear this in alignment with the CAD for computer-aided design. So often you'll hear this referred to as CAD-CAM in general society, because often they're in alignment. You have the design first, and then the computer goes along and makes it. But they are also separate strategies. So here, when we're talking about computer-aided manufacturing by itself, we're talking about software which can control and direct the production process by coordinating machinery and equipment through the computer. So the idea being is the computer's going to make it for you. So the computer and the machinery are fed instructions, which the computer then goes along to manufacture the product. So often some examples of this is going to be like the 3D printer, where the computer itself is making that product in terms of the 3D design process. So here we've got like sort of a prosthetic limb being created by the 3D printer. And the evolution of 3D printing is amazing. Like you'll see a whole bunch of if you just Google out any versions of 3D printing. Not only we've got prosthetics here, you have 3D printed items at home. You can just make odd random bits and pieces that you need and put it in the 3D printer and out it comes. Beyond that now is the evolution where you're using it to actually make ships. You'll see examples on the web where you look up shipbuilding. They made ships out of 3D printers and computer-aided manufacture. Not only that, they've also started making housing. So you'll see 3D printed houses occurring where these computers manufacture the building without human involvement, which is quite amazing to witness. So these are robotics in construction, collaborative robots, remotely operated robots, all done with computers. So the computer is doing the manufacturing process itself, making the item for you. So like many of the other areas we've covered so far with these different technological strategies, computer-aided manufacturing also has strengths and weaknesses. It's very similar to the other areas. The strengths are going to come in the high accuracy and precision. By using the computers, they're going to be highly fine-tuned, very precise, and we're going to get that benefit from the accuracy. Equally, we'll get the benefit from the reduced wastage. By being really accurate and precise, less discarded waste. Again, no need for breaks, so these machines can run for 24/7 if we want them to. And the productivity rates, by having the machine being pumped out by the computer, will again increase, so the cost per unit can fall. Once again, though, when you've got a computer making the item and replacing the human that used to do it before, we will have these tasks removed and we're going to need less people to do it. Yes, that's going to save money, but as we'll see over here, it can also lead to redundancy of employees as a result of that. Once again, the limitations. When you invest so much money in the software and the hardware to make the products using the computers, it can be very expensive to set up. And if the system fails, everything's going to fail along with it. And once again, we're going to need technical training in the remaining stuff to be able to solve those problems if a breakdown does occur. Okay, our next technological strategy is artificial intelligence. And again, this is an amazing area. And again, if you go onto your Google and you do your research or your TikTok videos or else, you'll see this applied in so many different ways and evolving as well. So it'll be fascinating to see in 5-10 years' time where this area of technology takes us, not only in terms of production of goods and services, but as a human race. So just as an interesting insight into this area and how far artificial intelligence has come, if you Google or look up IBM Watson, this was an artificial intelligence platform that was set up for this popular TV show Jeopardy! The game show roughly revolves around the ideas of certain words or phrases are posed to the contestants, and they need to come up with a solution from that. So you've got to draw upon a whole realm of general knowledge, but also the cleverness of the way that the actual phrase is created. Well, this computer system was set up as a contestant. It was programmed and the software performed to allow it to not only access general knowledge, but also the way we phrase things. And so it learned from the experience. From every time it failed on a certain question, it learned from that experience and refined its own software program to get better and better. Well, it eventually ended up beating the contestants. So the artificial intelligence system was machinery. Rather than using humans, its own intelligence learns from the experience and builds upon that. So you can see this in lots of different businesses in terms of how they're using this now in production. So artificial intelligence is sometimes referred to as any computer system that perceives its environment and then takes actions that maximize its chances of achieving its goals. It's learning from itself, it's learning from its mistakes, it's perceiving what's going on and making its own adjustments to that. So where can we use this in business in terms of our production of goods and services? Well, one of the first ones is in web search engines like Google, which now has that predictive ability within it. It's working out from when people type in what people might be looking for and starts generating search results based upon that. It can look at your past history and work out what you may have been looking at before and try and match items to that. So it's that ability to learn from the experience. Very similar with your Netflix, as you would know. Okay, if you've got Netflix or you've got any of the other whether it be Amazon, YouTube, but more importantly, like your Stan or your Paramount Plus, etc., those things there have a predictive component to it. If you always like watching certain types of war movies, it will start referencing that and seeing the connections to how long you're hovering over those war movies or watching them or for the duration, and it will start suggesting similar veins of genre movies that you might be interested in. It's trying to read and interpret you. It's responding to the situation and using its intelligence in the system to try and work out what the customer best needs. So it's responding to us. Another way it can respond to us, your Siri, your Alexa, the way that your human voice now, I remember when this first came out for myself on my phone, it was amazing but you had to control it so carefully. But now it's learning from the different accents and the pronunciations, and it's now being able to predict and interpret what you may want to ask, and it's responding to that. So those predicting human behavior items, whether it be in speech or behavior, is also occurring. Another big one that you've seen a lot of notoriety in the news is those autonomous self-driving cars, which are now coming up from groups like Tesla, where on your average day between Sydney and Melbourne, these autonomous vehicles are moving up and down the motorway, gaining intelligence. Now, at the moment, they have a passenger alongside it as a safety precaution that can save the car if anything was to occur. But in the future, it's moving to that position where these vehicles will be able to drive themselves. They respond to sensors and cameras in the car to detect not only the sides of the road, but also cars moving in and out, the speed of the flow of the traffic, whether somebody steps out in front of them and they need to brake rapidly. So it's picking up all this information and then responding to it, so showing intelligence in that. So you may well have in the future the ability to literally just drop in the back of the car and allow the car to take you in. And all the implications that will have are just amazing in terms of the future. And the idea being that this self-learning intelligence has been shown at a very high level in computer games, chess and Go, where it's now at a point where the computer nearly 100% chance of beating you as the individual. So the development of this wealth of knowledge that is building on this big data that it draws upon to be able to make those decisions and to try and simulate human intelligence and mimic human behavior just keeps growing, and we'll have more and more applications in business and the productions of goods and services as a result of that. Okay, artificial intelligence is a fascinating area and constantly evolving. So what are the strengths? Why are businesses using that, and why are they likely to use more of it in the future? Well, again, it's that ability to anticipate, assess, and respond to customer needs, whether it be Netflix or whatever you're watching, and the ability that artificial intelligence is responding to that, anticipating it, and giving what the customer best needs as a result of that. So high accuracy, precision, and meeting customer needs. So it's going to meet those market needs we're so desperately looking for. Also, as this information pool keeps growing and growing, what is called a big data pool of information, it's going to be able to make better decisions, quicker decisions. So the technology can respond and make more informed decisions more responsively and quicker and better meet the needs of the customer. Also, with this wealth of information, it can start to now forecast what might happen in the future and adjust production accordingly. So if it's worked out that there's always a seasonal trend around Christmas for certain items to be produced, it can start anticipating and responding to that. If it's there in terms of the autonomous vehicle, it can start working out what's going on and respond to that very quickly. So its ability to forecast, reduce waste, is again one of its major strengths. And it removes the need for humans to perform repetitive, boring tasks, because the computers can adjust and anticipate and respond to that. So it hopefully allows more creativity in the design processes that humans do perform in terms of the production process. So fascinating area. Disadvantages? Well, there always are some. And so one of the big disadvantages, obviously, is it is expensive to set up and test. The idea being that autonomous vehicles going up and down between Melbourne and Sydney every day, it's a constant year-by-year process to try and accumulate all that data to allow it to get to a point where you can trust it to drive itself. Would you right now trust the vehicle to drive you to school and back again each day without any human interference? That will be a judgment for yourself, but you can imagine it's got to get to that level where that constant testing occurs before you can have that confidence in it. Once again, if the system fails, in this case here, the autonomous vehicle, if it does, it's going to be a big issue for the consumer. But if you can imagine for its use in production, well, again, if it's the system is relying on it, then any failure will shut down the whole system. Once again, we're going to need high technical training to support it. And once again, if the self-driving vehicles really get to a point where we can think for industry, do we now need lorry drivers? Do we now need train drivers? If all of this can be done by technology, you almost remove the need for transport drivers and the big impact that that will have on industry and individual businesses. So a fascinating area with strengths and limitations. Our next category of technological strategies is online services. And again, this will be an area that you'll be very familiar with in your day-to-day life, being young millennials and Z generation. So these are online services which allow web pages, apps, and platforms that allow the businesses to provide that service to you from the internet online. Now, importantly, just want to grab this tip down here at the bottom before we go any further. We want to restrict our answer in this category to the actual provision of the service. Okay, what service is being given to the customer through this online device? If you think for yourself, a lot of when you're going on the internet is you're being visually assaulted by marketing images. Well, that's in the marketing area. It's not about the actual service that's providing to you. So ignore anything related to online marketing in your answers in terms of this area and restrict it purely to the provision of a service to the customer that comes from this online meeting. So let's look at some business applications of online services. Where would you see them? Well, easily one of the most famous ones is probably WebJet. The idea being is that you as a customer can search for your flight, book your flight, organize the baggage, additional holiday services, all through that online service provided from that website. So great benefits for you as a consumer. The same thing would apply to Airbnb, Uber, Skyscanner, what if. The idea being is you can use this online version to create the service, to access the service that you're looking for. The same for all this streaming media content. It's a proliferation of that we now have, whether it's music for Spotify, Netflix, Stan, Binge, Disney, Paramount, Optus, whole range of them. The idea being is you are sourcing your entertainment through online and it's been delivered to you through this online service. The same can also apply to online retailers, that you're buying items from eBay, Amazon, The Iconic, Shopify. You're accessing those goods and services that you require through the online service that's been delivered to you. And as it's going along now, even cloud services allow businesses to connect with clients, prepare and share work, provide services from anywhere in the world. So your Google Workspace is also an example of a service that's been provided to the customers through this online medium. So you can imagine a wealth of resources growing exponentially. You're all part of it, but absolutely an area where we can improve our production of our goods and services to our consumers through this online service component. So online services is an exponentially growing area, which all of you are part of. You love it. And this is definitely an area where businesses can really take advantage of this technological strategy to provide more services to their customers. Okay, so if we get a discuss question on online services, remember a discuss question requires to have the strengths and the weaknesses or limitations. So we need to be able to draw the distinction between the two. So what is online services firstly going to provide better for the production of a service for a business? Well, firstly, if the service is involved in remote working, it gives that flexibility that we can use those cloud services to allow our employees to provide their job from anywhere at home. They could be at home, they could be on holiday and still do the work that's required for you to provide the service to the customers. Customers also can access this from anywhere in the world. So if you're offering your Netflix, a customer can access it from anywhere in the world. If you're doing the webjet and they want people to buy your flights, again, anywhere in the world, 24/7, all-time availability of this service. It's going to be incredibly beneficial for customers and they're going to love that accessibility of it. In theory, if you no longer need to operate your physical bricks and mortar store, whether it's your flight service, travel agency, and instead you can just have this online portal to access those services, well, you don't need to operate that bricks and mortar store anymore. So you're going to save money in terms of the costs associated in operating that store. So we can remove those physical presences and instead just do it all online. And in theory, if the technology gets smart enough to anticipate and respond to customer needs, well, you need less workers as well. So if I book all my flights on Webjet, and I'm using that as my search and booking procedure, then we don't need all these additional people to do that job for me. Okay, so we're going to save the number of employees needed by the business. Again, strengths and weaknesses of that. Once again, setting up a platform like Webjet or like Netflix, it's going to be hugely expensive to begin with to get it all right to meet the customer needs. So a massive pre-planning stage to get it ready and lots of money tied up in expensive software platforms. Once again, imagine if you're Webjet and the system crashes for any reason, well, then the whole provision of the services completely disappears. So any systems failure will have major disruptions to the service you can provide. Once again, we're going to need very high-level technical training of all the people that set up the platform, that set up the software programs, that do all the coding. They're going to be incredibly well trained and knowledgeable and can deal with problem solving very quickly if anything occurs to it. And unfortunately, once again, if we've replaced these physical presence stores and the number of people needed to be there as a coal face, so to speak, we could lead to large-scale redundancy in some of these industries and businesses that rely on online services. So again, another fascinating area which is really evolving rapidly. Okay, let's have a look at a worked example of how we might see technological strategies applied in either a SAC or end-of-year examination type question. So here in front of us, here's our question. We have a scenario, a travel booking business. is hoping to reduce the cost of maintaining its bricks and mortar local branches. So this is a local travel agency, or it could be a national one, which has got the shops at the end of the main street all there ready for you to walk in. Now, clearly there's a lot of costs involved in the maintenance of those buildings and the upkeep, the electricity that goes with it, etc., etc., etc. So this business is looking to reduce its costs. So the question is asking you to, with that scenario in mind, to propose. So you've got to make a suggestion, propose and discuss. So again, that task word requires us to look at the strengths and weaknesses of the strategy you come up with. So propose and discuss a strategy related to technological developments that would help them achieve their objectives. So we see our 3 marks here. We've already highlighted the task word. So jumping ahead here, we can already anticipate where the marks are going to come. The propose is going to ask for suggestion. That's going to be 1 mark for suggesting it. And we've got to do a discuss here. So it's going to look for the strengths and the weaknesses of that strategy to get the 4 marks available. So we can see that now in our sample answer here. So big surprise, a travel agency. One idea could be to have an online service for that instead of having a bricks and mortar retail store. So a travel agency looking to save costs on its bricks and mortar local branches would benefit from investing in online services. Proposal ticked. Just give it straight to the assessor. That is your suggested solution for this scenario here. Now we need to get into the investigation of the discussion, the strengths and weaknesses. So by investing in a fully functional integrated website that provides information, answers, questions, and can take bookings, this business can save the cost of maintaining a physical store. The site can provide 24 hours a day access to customers and ensures a standardized professional response is always given. So whenever you go on the website, you get the same professional service. So here's our strengths. However, although the initial development time and cost to create the website may be prohibitive for some smaller businesses, the investment should pay for itself in the long run. So we've identified there the weakness, that it's going to be time consuming and costly to set up. However, the argument in the end is that in the long term, this should pay for itself. So here we have a nicely structured response. We've proposed it, then we've discussed it, the strengths and the weaknesses, beautifully laid out. So here we have at the end here a nice summary of all of our strategies related to technological developments. You should be able to, in your mind, be able to, 1, identify them. Can you describe them? Can you discuss them? Can you say what the strengths and weaknesses of each one is? Evaluate them in relation to a scenario or case study where you think they'll be most applicable. Okay, and can you draw that information together to some contemporary case studies as well? So firstly, automated production lines. Okay, this is where there is a sequence of machinery designed and arranged in line for that sequence of production to occur. It can work 24/7. It can be well organized by machinery to make sure the accuracy and precision is there, and we can produce standardized items over and over and over again. Online services. Accessing the service that might usually have come from originally from a retail store where a customer would walk in and provide that service to your customers online, whether it be things like Webjet flight bookings, whether it be accessing entertainment from Netflix rather than in the old days having to get a video from the store, okay? Providing that service online to the customer. And then computer-aided manufacturing. A good example of this is like 3D printers, where we're using the computer to make the item for us. So again, removing the need for humans to make the item, the computer replaces that in the actual manufacture of that good. Computer-aided design, using computers to design, whether it be a house, a plane, a boat, but allowing us to simulate making the actual product itself without having to make one bit of it beforehand. So again, showing the customer, showing the client what it would look like, feel like to experience that product before you've even made it. So the computer-aided design. Robotics, incredibly growth area in terms of using technology to make the item, the robot itself, literally physically manhandling big items which are too heavy or dangerous for people to use. Or we're using robots to do uniform, repetitive tasks like the robot pickers we use for Amazon to pick and pack your products that get sent out to you. So we can use those in production of goods and services as well. And finally, the area of artificial intelligence, which is going to be amazing to see in the future, but where the system reacts and responds and learns from its environment and is able to predict and respond to consumer needs and wants and provide those services for us. So all of those technological strategies designed to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the operations system.